The MENA region is suffering from climate change at double, in some instances, the rates that are being suffered globally. So it's critical that the region moves at a faster pace, especially in the Middle East and especially in this part. But in terms of the climate change that's happening, in terms of the degrees that are going up, but also in terms of the emissions that's going up. However, we are in a region that is going through an industrial growth as well, which does have its emission profile with it. So what's important here is that the balance of how we attack this challenge and the balance of how the corporate world plus the public world goes after this challenge becomes a very important question to be answered here.
ولكن يعني هل الشركات المحلية والإقليمية في منطقة المينا هل وصلت باستراتيجيتها لنزع الكربون والاستدامة إلى المستويات المطلوبة لمواجهة هذا التحدي؟
It all starts with the government. So yes, 50% of the governments have been very clear about their net zero ambitions. When you take these numbers down and you trickle them down, and actually you realize that only 12% of the corporate world have committed to the same numbers. But it's an important 12% because it's the biggest 12% players in the region. However, when we take that even down further, only 6% of them are publicly disclosing what their numbers are. And that is a 50% funnel down that happens from the government ambition to the corporate world. What we have been seeing recently is that there's a lot of more momentum towards this, and the smaller players across all the sectors are looking towards the bigger players, and they're looking towards the bigger players to get direction, and the bigger players are moving. So it's actually a more positive note given the region and the transition that we are in right now.
بالحديث عن المنطقة يعني هل هناك attributes أو مميزات محددة للمنطقة تجعل وضعها وتحديها للتغير المناخي مغايرا أو مخالفا لمناطق أخرى حول العالم؟
We actually see this as much more of an opportunity than it is a risk. Allow me to explain. In this region, the cost per solar power renewable is 1/5 the global average. There are plans at the moment on green hydrogen being at $1.5 per kilogram by 2030 in the region. This region sees 22 to 25% of the solar energy that we receive as the globe. Combine that with the nimble policy making that we have, the fast decision making and the access to capital, this is the region that is going to be at the fulcrum and potentially one of the most important fulcrums of the energy transition as a whole. We see this as a tremendous opportunity for the region.
طبعا أنت جئت على ذكر السياسات الحكومية على صعيد وضع الاستراتيجيات لمكافحة الانبعاثات والتغير المناخي وتحول الطاقة، ونعرف أنه صحيح أنه التكنولوجيا مهمة جدا لتطوير التقنيات لنزع الكربون، ولكن سياسات الحكومية هي أيضا مهمة جدا. هل المنظومة التشريعية للحكومات في المنطقة وصلت إلى مرحلة النضج والوضوح الكافي لقيادة التحول في قطاع البزنسز والشركات في المنطقة؟
طبعا. Yes, of course we do. We can see it here. You and I are an FII today. What we're talking about today is that the framework by which the government is putting in the policies and the regulations, and I have to say the speed that they're doing it in, is allowing the corporates to move much quicker than they would in other regions, absolutely. And I fast forward to COP28. This is going to be one of the few COPs, or one of the first COPs, where there's a lot more of the corporate participation in the COP. And if those are indications of anything, it is the fact that there's a very strong PPP type of relationship that's happening in order to achieve this. And as I mentioned earlier, the combination of capital, quick decision-making, regulatory framework deployment does allow this opportunity to see itself through at a much quicker pace, which, as we started talking about, is critical for this part of the world as well. I believe the seriousness is quite high, both on the government side of things and on the corporate side of things as well.